Boyle and I'm quitting alcohol. So someone asked me if I could explain what Moody's downgrading US Treasuries from, I think it was AAA plus to AA plus means. I haven't really looked into it, but Moody's is a ratings agency from what I gather. And people look at their ratings, how they rate certain commodities and investments, and they use those ratings as a risk assessment. But it's all horseshit anyway, because these same ratings agencies were calling the fucking parceled up home loan debt from the 2008 financial crisis like AAA plus as well. So it doesn't really mean anything. Symbolically, it means something. I think they were the last ratings agency to downgrade the US Treasuries. I think Standard & Poor had done it earlier, a few years back. I think all the major ones except for Moody's had downgraded the debt or the treasuries. Basically, all it means is the US bonds, which had been considered a risk-free asset, like the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year US Treasury bond. These are the bonds that fund the US government. So before 2000 and when did China stop fucking buying US treasuries? About 8 or 10 years ago. So 2014, I think China stopped buying US debt or treasury bonds. They've still got about $1 trillion worth. But now, just this weekend, I think, UK overtook China as the second biggest holder of US debt, which is insane because the UK is a debtor nation. They also don't create anything. They also don't manufacture anything. So one debtor nation is propping up a second bigger debtor nation. And let's fucking pun that up. Detonation is the word. Because things are about to go boom. So the biggest holder of US treasuries is Japan, and they are going to be periodically selling their $1 trillion worth. And then the second biggest nation now is the UK, who's a debtor nation. So I don't know where they're getting their money to buy US treasuries. The third biggest nation is China, and they haven't bought US treasuries in 10 years. They've just been buying gold. And then the fourth biggest holder of US treasuries is the mighty Cayman Islands, population 73,000. So that sort of gives you an idea of where the US economy is heading. Basically, what it means is the Federal Reserve, the central bank, is going to have to print money and buy this debt to fund the government. So the US government issues debt called treasury bonds, and they sell these treasury bonds to the world for whatever percent it is. At the moment, I think it's 4.5%, depending on the term, how long it is. So 4.5% per annum for 10 years if you're buying a 10-year treasury bond. And I think the 30-year treasury bond is 4.3 or something at the moment. So 4.3% per year over 30 years, which is actually in real terms losing money because inflation is about 7%. So why people would do it? is beyond me. That's why China and most of these other countries, instead of buying the AAA plus rated US Treasury bills, are now just buying gold. So basically, what Moody's is saying is there is now risk in US Treasuries, which has for the last, since 1945 or whatever it is, last 80 years, been better than gold. It's been considered better than gold. Now they're saying, hold on a second, the US is up to their eyeballs in debt. There's some wild tariff shit going on. These treasury bills, they expect there's going to be a lot more inflation, and these treasury bills are going to have a little bit of a shaky time getting sold because there's no fucking buyers, and the US has to come up with $2 trillion just to cover the deficit. So the US spends 2.5 to probably $3 trillion this year, more than it gets in taxes and receipts and revenue. And to cover the deficit, this $3 trillion, the US government issues the treasury bills, says, I'm going to sell you $1 trillion worth of treasuries. I'll set it at 4%. You give me $1 trillion. I'll give you the $1 trillion back plus the 4.5% a year for 30 years. It's basically, they're basically fucking taking out loans from the rest of the world. And now the rest of the world aren't buying because they understand that the money they're getting on interest isn't even covering inflation anymore. So most of the world are just buying fucking gold, except for England and the Cayman Islands. Who the fuck is in the Cayman Islands? It's all hedge funds and bankers and shit like that. But really what's happening is, I think last week, the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the USA, bought $83 billion worth of the government's debt. So all it is, it's a big fucking pony show, and it's about to blow up because the way the Federal Reserve buys these treasury bills to give the money to the US government is just by printing the money, just by adding a few zeros. And eventually this leads to trouble. I know it seems like it won't, but it does, and it's coming to a head sometime soon, and it looks like nobody's going to do anything to stop it until something actually breaks. But when something actually breaks, they're going to have to print so much money, like way more than they fucking printed during COVID. Like, they're going to have to flood the system with money, and people's savings are going to get wiped out. Inflation's going to go mental. Gold is going to go through the roof. Bitcoin's going to go mental. And that will be the last time they can do that, I'm pretty sure. Because after the next print, when they get into the exact same trouble again in probably about 12 to 18 months, it will be more like $2 quadrillion that they'll have to print. And by then, you're talking like hyperinflation. The numbers just stop working eventually. So, yeah, that's basically what Moody's is saying. They're like, the US Treasuries are no longer the gold standard. The world seems to think gold is now the gold standard for some crazy reason. I think it's Bitcoin. I also think it's gold. Gold's going to go mental as well. But Bitcoin will outperform gold. Anyway, let's see. It's coming to a head. So the next month is going to be very interesting to see what happens. So I hope that helped. Anyway, fucking that'll do for tonight, and I'll see you the fuck later.